Hello and welcome to this edition of In the Sahel, coming to you from West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, Senegal. In the Sahel is WADR's weekly security magazine that delves into the heart of the African security crisis, telling stories and strategies to shape the region's response to pressing challenges. The program is brought to you with support from the Open Society Foundation, OSF. I am Imo Edet, standing in for Abdullahi Hassan. Last week we talked about the purchase of military equipment and financing the fight against terrorism. This edition we will try to find out how the Alliance of Sahel States is being funded.
This is In the Sahel.
On the 16th of September 2023, the West African sub-region was shaken when Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger announced the creation of the Alliance of Sahel States, a defense pact originally thought to back up the threat of retaliation against the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, if it militarily intervened in Niger following the coup. This caused a pandemonium of skepticisms, especially among surrounding countries and worse still among citizens of the affected countries. In their statement leaving ECOWAS, the three member states highlighted three major criticisms of the bloc. First, they cited that it had drifted from the ideals of its founding fathers and the spirit of Pan-Africanism, perhaps a veiled critique of the bloc's approach to seeking resolutions. Second, they shared a belief that the bloc was now under the influence of foreign powers, betraying its founding principles, and has become a threat to member states and people, which likely aim at tying the body to former colonial master France, which has become deeply unpopular in their states. And third, the group accused the body of not supporting their fight against terrorism and insecurity, and imposing illegal, illegitimate, inhumane, irresponsible sanctions, which have led to increased hardship and uncertainty in those states. But this has left many questioning if the Confederation has been able to ease the hardship of the population. Have they been able to eradicate insurgency and empower the people the more? But before we continue, Ogubierika in this piece sums up the AES in 1 year.
1 year after the creation of the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, the results remain mixed. The initiatives taken, although promising, struggle to mask the structural challenges and the potential consequences of a break with ECOWAS. One of the main successes of the AES is the establishment of a common defense architecture and organizing joint military maneuvers involving the armies of the three member countries as well as of Togo and Chad. Experts say these exercises aim to strengthen the collective response capacity against jihadist groups that threaten the region. On the other hand, while there may be some progress, notably the recent initiative to set up a common biometric passport, progress is slow and sluggish. For many watchers, there is no indication that the exit will be resounding and that the three countries are not ready to break completely with ECOWAS. However, the AES faces weaknesses, among them the restriction of democratic space in member countries and the lack of a clear roadmap for political transitions are areas of concern. Between political ambitions and economic realities, the future of this organization will depend on its ability to negotiate an orderly exit from ECOWAS and to put in place the necessary infrastructure to ensure its autonomy.
That was a piece by Ogubierika. Now, Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger created in September 2023 the Alliance of Sahel States, which became the Confederation in July 2024 as the Alliance of Sahel States. The main objective of this organization is to fight insecurity in the three countries ruled by the military. In Burkina Faso, the idea is welcomed by part of the population, but some people are reserved, questioning the effectiveness of such an organization in the reconquest of the various territories. Well, we do have a report put together by our Ouagadougou correspondent, Martin Kaba, and voiced by Augustine Coley.
In Betou, in the Central East region in Burkina Faso, the creation of the Alliance of Sahel States is well received by the population. The coordinator of the Citizens Watch of this commune, located 250 kilometers from Ouagadougou, believes that this new organization can help improve the fight against terrorism. Mourabek Jesongo. If you share the same borders and you join forces to work together or defeat the terrorists, if we don't work together, it won't work. Because when the terrorists come to the Niger border, they come in and do whatever they want. Then they come and attack us. It's the same thing in Mali. It's the same thing as in the other border countries. Journalist and political analyst Blaise Ketenga agrees.
You know that we have a zone of 3 borders that is known, according to some theories, to be a corridor for the passage of armed groups. So, finding 3 countries that have a problem with a particular zone and the 3 borders of Liptako Goma, I think it will help substantially in terms of the ability to combine human and material resources. Imagine the 5,000 soldiers in Mali, 5,000 in Burkina Faso, and 5,000 in Niger to carry out offensive operations in the 3 border zone. It will substantially weaken the armed groups.
The Alliance of Sahel States was created in September 2023 by Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the 3 countries of the Central Sahel, led by the military. But it was in July 2024 that the birth of this new organization was really recorded with the Confederation of Alliance of Sahel States. Its primary objective is to federate the efforts of these countries in the fight against terrorism, but also to promote a process of development at the grassroots. A noble objective for the president of the Regional Council of CSOs of the Central East, Pierre Clever Kima.
Today, you see that with the war in Ukraine, there are alliances everywhere. As long as the African countries do not understand that they must unite, we cannot get out of it. So, the OSA welcomed it. It is a model. It is our wish that the alliance manages to impose itself in Africa and even to exclude other nations from joining the US.
But in Burkina Faso, some people have reservations about the ESA's real contribution to resolving the security crisis in the 3 countries. Better still, journalist Youssou Ouedraogo believes that he may have a hidden agenda behind the creation of this new organization.
I don't think we need to create another structure in another structure. To respond to the situation of the 3 countries we live in, I think that with the ECOWAS we could find the modus vivendi to create this partnership between the 3 countries to fight effectively against terrorism. Because what people forget is that the creation of the AES is not only against the fight against terrorism. Is there no other agenda behind our authorities in creating this AES? Because I think that the creation of the AES is not the fact that ECOWAS put pressure on its authorities to organize elections. Even if the situation is difficult, we cannot have transitions of more than 3 years, 4 years. It's not possible.
The charter establishing the establishment specifies that bodies will be created to manage the various axes of the AES. These bodies will cover areas such as the economy, culture, politics, and social affairs. On the financing of the organization, Article 10 of the Charter specifies that it will be done mainly by the 3 signatory countries without further clarification.
That was a report by our Ouagadougou correspondent, Martin Kaba, and voiced by Augustine Coley. Still on the financial survival of this alliance, the Confederation made it clear that they will not be needing external funding or interference as it can sufficiently fund and manage itself. Ms. Abdoulaye Diop, Mali's Minister of Foreign Affairs, at a meeting in Brussels, Belgium, raised this issue. In this conversation he had just before September 2023, the minister talked about the cooperation between the 3 Sahel states beyond the security spheres. For him, these three nations of the Central Sahel must work together to build a strong economy, but also work more on the diplomatic front. Take a listen.
We are
going to go beyond the military alliance to create on 16 September 2023 the Alliance of Sahel States on the basis of the Liptako-Gourma Charter. But we are now working to go much further than that. So we have decided to set up a community that can help us, one, to ensure security, to fight terrorism, because we have been fighting terrorism in this area for a long time. But we couldn't do it together. Now we are going to do it together and against all the other factors of insecurity. The second pillar is to work to put in place far-reaching economic integration, because there was already an economic and geocultural area that was there to strengthen free movement in our countries, to have integrating projects in the fields of energy, in the field of transport, in the fields of infrastructure, because our countries are also physically linked by many realities that we can. And these countries also abound in mineralogical resources of all kinds. If we look at the region's underground resources alone, it's enormous. Nobody sees the Sahel as a source of supply for Africa and the world in terms of our resources, because we only see the desert aspect. So, I think there is the economic integration aspect on which our finance ministers and the ministers in charge of development are focusing. And the third is to really work together so that our countries speak with one voice and take coordinated diplomatic action. Through the Alliance of Sahel States, we need to propose an alternative, an organization that is not controlled from outside, an organization that does not become a danger for its members, for these populations. How we can work to bring our populations closer together by putting in place another way of doing things.
Pour ces populations, comment on peut travailler à rapprocher nos populations en mettant en place une autre façon de faire.
That was Abdoulaye Diop, Mali's Minister of Foreign Affairs.
This is In the Sahel.
If you're just tuning in, this is In the Sahel, WADR security program aiming to tell the African security crisis in the African way. Well, let's take this discussion further as we bring on board our guest. Joining us in this edition is Idris Mohammed. He is an expert in peace, security, conflict, and development initiative. He is also a facilitator in United States Institute of Peace and a member of the Conflict Research Network of West Africa. Mr. Mohammed, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the program.
You're welcome.
So, sir, it's been 1 year since the formation of the Sahel Alliance of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Let's get your assessment of this confederation so far.
Thank you very much for having me in this conversation. This is part of what we call the New World Order in terms of politics and international issues that is happening when you look at like I can call it the advance of Cold War, because what these leaders are doing in different countries, for example, in Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, and others, proxy war that is happening between US and its allies, Russia and its allies. So I think that's the advance of Cold War that is happening, which African countries found themselves keying into the war in order to put their own contribution. But looking at these countries that carve themselves as Sahel Alliance. They have done that in order to make sure that they bring out an excuse or any way of them remaining in power rather than, handing over the countries into democratic system of administration. So that is why they cut out from ECOWAS in order to have like a long-lasting system that will work for them, which will serve their own interests, which quite often they use media as a tool also to do what we call reconstruction of reality, in order to reinforce ideology to the populace in the various countries. This is what we are doing that is best for us, rather than, align with ECOWAS and other countries to bring democracy that will work for us. I think that's what they are doing.
Now, some political stakeholders and followers have said that this alliance seems better than ECOWAS. Don't you think this is a hasty conclusion? And what do you think could have been that yardstick for this assertion?
Yeah, so this is just what analysts are looking at. The major problem, I think somebody might assume the Sahel Alliance it will be better than ECOWAS. When you look at the fragility, and a lot of issues that ECOWAS found itself, a lot of weaknesses that ECOWAS failed to address issues regarding to the economic situation in the region, looking at the insecurity that battling the region, and an issue of migrations and a lot of political instability that is happening for over the years, and the ECOWAS failed to address the issue. So coming up with this Sahel, people will be very optimistic that this Sahel will address the issue. When you look at how they come out with the alliance bond out of that so-called what they call it, movement, against reliance on the Western economy, thinking of, revolving or boosting, economy that will speak to the African needs and demand, economy that will contextualize our own, economic needs and aspirations in Africa. When you look at a lot of cases of issue of World Bank, issues with International Monetary Fund, a lot of issues that some African countries found themselves as a result of, loans and money they borrowed from these international donors and some other things. So these are some of the things, people will look at it and said Sahel Alliance will be better than was. And also when you look at how this coalition is calling for the elimination of imperialism in Africa, and when you look at the mutual defense pact between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, that is well scripted, and when they want to come up like a confederation that will become like a platform for them to end insurgency, like the way they said, and build economic, vibrant economic structure that will even rub shoulders with, France economy and some other things in Francophone countries. I think this is what people are looking at. So that is why they want to unite their foreign policies and economics, to decolonize their territories.
One key thing that keep every confederation or every alliance going is proper funding. And this seems to be staring at the face of this confederation. And then they are also saying that they are well capable to fund themselves without any external financial support. And that is what they are standing on, that they do not need any external support. Let's compare this to when we had the likes of MINUSMA and France, funding the fight, supplying them with equipment, and what it is now? Where do you think they will likely get these types of fundings from?
So, their own main concern is to utilize their local economy, to utilize their natural resources. When you look at this country, they have abundance of lithium, gold, silver, uraniums. So what they are thinking is to heavily rely in transforming this economy to speak to the international standard. But my major concern, whether we like it or not, these Western countries still remain the determinator of how much you will earn in your own country and how well you can spend your own money. So I don't think, this is my personal opinion, I don't think the Sahel Alliance have a better framework that can work in the interests of their own country, and this interest that can speak to the, let me say, improvement of their economy, and that will lead to the source of generating funds that can, make them to stand and provide, what they needed in their own country. This is because when you look at the infrastructural issues, the terrorism that, sparked the entire region, when you look at the hunger, the brain drain that is happening, best brains are leaving the continent to US, Germany, and other Western world. So these are some of the major challenges they're supposed to look at apart from the abundant resources. Yes, agreed, they have the abundant resources, but who are the resources? Who are the human, resource to, steer and mobilize that resources to work according to the need and the desire of the template they develop? This is the question that we are asking. When you look at the institutions, that are very fragile and not working for so many, when you look at the corruption, the insecurity, the mindset, even the mindset and the attitude of the people, do they have the political will, of driving that economic agenda, that bringing a vibrant and giant Africa that can stand on itself? People like Thomas Sankara and the like of Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, and so many nationals who move, the continent forward. Do we have some of them now in these countries that have that will, and that attitude and discipline? Sometimes it's not about what you have on ground. It's the attitude, the mindset also that will help, because this thing is not machine that will move this thing to work. It's the mindset and the political will. So this is the major concern I'm asking.
What about in terms of equipment and ammunition acquisition? I mean, over the years, there've been so much reliance on fundings from, the UN, fundings from MINUSMA itself, the G5 Sahel, which, they disbanded, and then winning this war against insurgency, which primarily is what a lot of people feel, allowed the military to come into place. Do you see that happening? Because these terrorists we're seeing have more sophisticated equipment, more sophisticated weapons, and they are even more organized than a country itself.
So when you look at the Boko Haram challenge, which cut across Chad, cut across Nigeria, cut across part of Niger, I think even some part of Burkina Faso where they share border. So there are some elements of terrorist groups that are doing a lot of terrorist activities. The concern here, or the question that we're supposed to ask, when you look at the presence of French militaries in Niger, the U.S. presence in Niger, and a lot of international, militaries that were in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Chad, and nothing has changed. If you notice, there were no much, successful stories recorded, despite those best brains militaries that are working across the region. So the same thing when these people become, when they took over from the civil administration and they become military, people were thinking that all these insurgencies and other terror-related threats will reduce. But when you look at the situation in the Sahel, it's not true. nothing has changed in Niger as I'm talking to you. There are a lot of attacks from the armed group in Niger. If you realize, when Fiani became the president, few days after, there were a lot of attacks. There are a lot of killings of military. If you notice, military in Niger were complaining bitterly about the attacks from the armed groups.
Well, as we round up this conversation, Mr. Mohammed, do you see this Sahel Alliance in the near future running out of steam in the face of more security threat, economic crises, and perhaps people starting to speak out, the population starting to speak out? Like you have mentioned, there hasn't been any difference since they took over power. They've been rather more complained by the people. Do you see them running out of steam much later in the future?
When you look at power is transient. Power will not remain forever. These people, they have their own mindset. They have their own interest. They think they can do this alliance. Do you think other people that will come that will continue this alliance? And if you look at the history and the nature of this country, they have been battling with insecurity, number one. And secondly, these countries have long history of military and political instability. So you might wake up tomorrow and see, the president of Burkina Faso is no longer there as the president. Maybe the next military that took over will be another person, another friend with France and its allies. So the person may decide to say, we are out, we are no longer interested in this alliance. And what about the people that are in the country that have a lot of ties with France and some other allies? They have a lot of investment. There are, if you could remember, when you look at the political economy of any country, relies on different groups, the political elites, the business elites, the religious elites, a lot of elites. So these elites might decide to gang against. A country cannot by one person. It's governed by everybody. What if these all people, put their hands together against them? The reality will change. The economic situation might bite the people in the country, and people might decide to say, we are no longer interested in this kind of system. We were better when we were together with France and its allies. What about, the insecurity if it persists, and people are being targeted or thrown into fear in every day. So these are some of the things that might change in the near future and might affect the alliance. This is just, the prediction. This is just a prediction, and based on the reality, based on the history, and based on the political context of the region.
Mr. Idris Mohammed, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insight on this topic. Thank you again, and do have a great day ahead.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our guest has been Idris Mohammed, an expert in peace, security, conflict, and development initiative. He is also a facilitator at the United States Institute of Peace and a member of the Conflict Research Network of West Africa. This is a wrap of this edition of In the Sahel, WADR's security program. This program has been brought to you with support from the Open Society Foundation, OSF. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our guests and colleagues for their contributions. Do join us on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM every Friday at 7:30 a.m. and the same day at 6:30 p.m. for the repeat broadcast. Also connect with us on our social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR News. And do visit our website, wadr.org, for this and previous editions of the program. I am Emo Edit. Bye for now.